I will always say, I was very lucky to where I have two other gay cousins. I have one who's 12 years older than me.
Thank God for the gay cousins.
Right. And I have one who's 2 years younger than me. And it's so funny because I live in LA. My older cousin, he lives in New York, and my younger cousin lives in Atlanta. So we
only three places.
Right.
Got it all covered.
But so like my family, there was just always gay people around in my family.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Queerly Blax Show. I'm your host, Ashley, and I'm so happy you came by. The Queerly Blax Show aims to normalize the everyday existence of Black LGBTQIA+ individuals through an interview-style series with regular folks like you and me. So every week, a new guest shares their story and unique perspective on their existence as an LGBTQIA+ individual. Thank you for tuning in, and make sure you subscribe, download, set your reminders to the podcast so you never miss an episode. Enjoy the show.
Welcome back to another episode of the Queerly Blax Show. I'm your host, Ashley. I'm here with a special guest today. We got Grim in the building, y'all.
What's going on, you guys?
Grim, go ahead and tell the people a little bit about yourself.
Hi, my name is Grim. I am originally from Prince George's County by way of New York
PG.
City.
Wale.
Okay. Yes, sir.
I went to Howard.
Oh, come on, Howard. Yeah, I was always around Howard. So I was in New York for about right out of high school, went to New York for about like 10 years, got a full scholarship at the Alvin Ailey school, decided to go into more commercial stuff. I have had the likes of dancing with, Kendrick Lamar, The Weeknd, Lil' Kim, to name a few, I guess.
That's incredible, man.
I've been very blessed.
Yeah, that's awesome. You're a classically trained dancer. That's incredible.
Yes,
Alvin Ailey's been around for forever.
I'm very thankful the fact that I started my training, my professional training at a school like that. It instills a sense of not only Black pride, but a work ethic within, you as a person, and more importantly, as a Black man, and even more importantly, as a Black gay man.
Absolutely. We definitely gonna get into that. But before we do, I always start at the beginning. What was your first encounter with your sexuality?
First encounter, wow.
When you was like, hey man, I might like the fellas, man.
You know what was so funny? I feel like there was some part of me that I always knew. I felt like Tommy from the Green Ranger always gave me a more than usual feeling that he gave every other boys. I think I always knew. I would honestly say the first time that I actually felt like, oh, I actually might like be into or might be attracted to this person, I would probably say 5th grade. Mm-hmm. It was this guy, I'm not going to say his name, but we used to walk to school together, and I remember he was just very cute, and I was just always like, he is so handsome. And like we would just talk, and he would just be all like bro with me, and I'm like, oh bro, oh my god.
What up? It's your host, Ashley, and I'm interrupting this podcast to ask, are you following us? Have you downloaded the podcast? Are you subscribed to us on YouTube? If you're not already, go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow us on all platforms, Queerly Black. I'm going to let y'all get back to the show. Peace.
But yeah, I think that's what it was. I think the first time I would say acted on it was definitely I was 16.
Yeah. And the high school years, boy. Stuff crazy.
I will honestly say I lucked up because I went to a high school that was a normal high school. So I went to Suitland High School right outside of DC in Suitland, Maryland. And they also had this name called Fruitland because of the high gay population in Suitland. And then also Suitland had an arts program, which I was a part of, the dance program. So I was able to come out and not be so much of an outcast or feel like so much of an outcast. I felt like it was a comfortable space because I saw so many I saw so many groups of gay. I saw the professional gay. I saw the flamboyant gay man. I saw, even the older gay man with some of our teachers. I was able to get a broad spectrum very early on gay. It wasn't always like, oh, well, if you're gay, you just have to act like this and you have to be this way.
Yeah, that's
So,
pretty cool.
yeah.
Because I know, like, in DC, I went to Howard, so spending some time there, it's a very much a working class, like people are pretty
Yeah.
professional. So, gay and DMV is like very like kind of straight laced, you
Yeah.
can't tell one from the other kind of thing. But because you had the unique experience of being in the art program, you kind of saw like a diversity of the different types of people that exist, which is not the first thing you see when you are in Chocolate City.
Yes, exactly. I think that's a wonderful thing that I did have the privilege of experiencing in my formative years of figuring out what this feeling was, and then actually when I found out what the feeling was, like how to go about it. Because I had these things. I mean, because I had these things to look at, and I could say, well, no, that type of person is not really how I see myself. But and this type of person really isn't. But maybe this type of person is, and I can kind of identify with that. And this is how I can kind of grow as myself and really be confident in who I am.
Yeah, and so just for like to break that down even further, I'm assuming referring to like the spectrum of masculinity, because
Yes, without a doubt.
when you're
But
when
not
you
even, I think not even masculinity. I think also just, you know, how also just how I view life and how I view life in from the eyes of a gay man. I think that's like, yes, masculinity is a part of it, but also just how people look at life, and how people interpret life. As being in a minority based, well, double minority actually, because being a Black man and then also being a gay man. So yeah.
yeah, I know, I totally identify with that. I mean, even my wife and I talk about that all the time. Like we're we say we're pretty vanilla. Like if we were straight, we'd be just any other married couple, 14 years together, like house, like we'd be that. But because we're gay, it's the making the connection or identifying with people that experience, like we understand that. We say we're vanilla ice cream. Like we're like, you just sit there, like, go to work, like traditional professionals, like, but connecting with people and like finding that commonality, it is challenging when you are in so many different like communities. Like when you're in a professional community, you're also Black, which means
Yes.
that there's probably a very small population there. You're
Yeah.
gay, and you're a lesbian, you're masculine presenting lesbian, that's not like that doesn't want to be a man. So that's a whole other,
And then
it's all these
also
small
with all
nuances.
the fact of people still just seeing you as like a woman
A
and
woman,
treating you as
absolutely.
such. So listen, my hat goes off because I know for a fact that it ain't easy, and it's just not easy in general of finding where you fit in that space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think even for people learning how to connect with you, right? Because of preconceived notions about what a certain thing means, right?
Exactly.
It's like
Yes.
you see me and you're like, you probably wouldn't imagine that, like, I'm the one who cleans, I'm the one who's like organizing the bills, I'm the one who like is taking care of like pretty much household things. You look at me and think like, oh, she's a breadwinner, she's like doing this and that, and I do, we definitely carry our weight in that way, but like there's just all these preconceived notions. It's like, well, actually, I like to watch Housewives, I like to do these things, I like to all this other stuff.
And I'm a firm believer in finding your own spectrum of what your own masculine side and your own masculine femininity is, and having a partner that embraces both sides.
Absolutely. Yeah, which is also another challenge in terms of how people are able to connect and make long-term relationships, because even as you grow, even if you weren't queer or going through like a what I would say significant changes, you do change, right?
Yeah,
So
everybody
your
changes. Yeah.
presentation changing and all these other things. So anyway, it's definitely something I identify with, and I think should be a deeper conversation just in terms of the platform in general. So I'm gonna take that note because I think that that'd be a good conversation. So thank you for that.
Sorry, I'm a Cancer.
No,
so
that's good.
That's
good.
so.
Yeah, that's good. I like that because it's it just it's important. It's definitely important. But back to you. Your coming out story. So how was the process of coming out to, whether it was family, friends, or
It was my dad. So I will always say, I was very lucky to where I have two other gay cousins. I have one who's 12 years older than me.
Thank God for the gay cousins.
I have right. And I have one who's 2 years younger than me. And it's so funny because I live in LA. My older cousin, he lives in New York, and my younger cousin lives in Atlanta. So we
only three places.
Right.
Got it all covered.
But so like my family, there was just always gay people around in my family. I think with my dad, so my dad raised me. My dad always kind of knew, but he, when I was like 14, he did ask me, and I think I just wasn't ready because at the time I was still messing around with girls and I was still figuring it out. So I told him no. But then I was like 16, and I had messed around with a guy already. And I think I was on the internet and I was just, browsing. It's the internet. It's 2002. So I'm on the internet, and I think I looked for like Black gay guys or something like that. I can't remember. And then like a genius, I didn't delete the history. So my aunt gets on the internet and she always checks the history of all the kids or what they were going on. She checked she knew I was on because I was on the computer for like forever, like that whole night. And then so she called my dad. My dad came over. He like asked me what was going on. So I told him, I was like, I might be bi. I was like, I think I'm bisexual. He, we had our problems where he was just like, he had a hard time accepting it. I think once I got out of his house and it got to the point of where, you're no longer supporting me, so I am free to do whatever I want. But, I do love you. Do you want a relationship? And I think his want to have a relationship with his son always superseded how he wanted his son's life to go. For his own personal reasons. And I think he already knew, I would just always been a very independent type of person. I was going to do what I was going to do. Yeah. So that was kind of my coming out story. It was just basically, I came out when I was 16, which is relatively early, but I felt like at the time, because I talked about this with my cousin all the time, my cousin who's 12 years older, because he's a whole generation older. So, he always says, your generation was the time when people started coming out at, a relatively young age, like, in their adolescence. It was like in my generation, that wasn't the case. Like people didn't, he didn't like come out or actually start acting on those feelings until he was like 23, 24. Yeah, for me, it was like 16. Like, yeah. And then by 17, I knew. Like, I remember my dad asked me when I was 16, and I was like, oh, I might be bi. 17, I was like, yeah, I'm gay. And I even told him, I was like, I don't know what kind of, I was just like, don't think, because, with Black fathers, they're like, well, you just make sure you're a man when you come in here. And I was just like, don't think that I'm going to change, because I've seen that spectrum, and there's nothing wrong with that spectrum. There were people like that were feminine that helped me become as confident in myself as who I am. But I did know that, I just wasn't that, and it wasn't that, I just didn't skew more feminine than masculine. I'm not sitting here saying I'm this big old like, but it's just like, I just knew I wasn't what he had pegged in his mind as a gay man to be.
Exactly. Yeah. The imagery that he had about what that would mean. Yes. Wasn't you. Yeah. So you showed him a different side. I always tell this story about going to I was Christmas shopping with my aunt, and she's like 50s, and she was like, we're sitting in, like, you know, they have the little McDonald's in the Walmarts. This is like 15.
What up? It's your host, Ashley, and I'm interrupting this podcast to ask, are you following us? Have you downloaded the podcast? Are you subscribed to us on YouTube? If you're not already, go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow us on all platforms, Queerly Black. I'm going to let y'all get back to the show. Peace.
Years ago. And she was like, you know, you're so normal. I was like, what does that even mean?
Right.
But it's because of the same thing, right? Like, she has in her mind what it means. Like, if you say you're gay, it's like this, you know, these images that they seen on TV, you know, in the 90s, 80s, like what it looked like. You know, it was always like the person, the outcast in the neighborhood, or the kid that got picked on at school, that,
or
you know,
someone who was just a ham, very flamboyant, very out there, very much like
promiscuous, you know, and just, you know, all these labels in it. And just to see something different was like, oh, okay, like you're totally normal. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, you know, we all don't come in one package.
Right.
All come in one package. Like,
right. So how did your the way you express yourself and coming into who you are evolve as you became a dancer? So going to Alvin Ailey, you know, your experience in New York, and just kind of through that whole journey.
Well, you know, I was originally, so my dad's from New York. So I grew up being in New York all the time. I just you know, I lived in DC, but I was like, New York was nothing to go for me. But I think being there in my formative years just taught me so much about life. And then really being there and really experiencing as a gay man, one, you know, that's where Stonewall is. So you have so much history. I always loved sitting back. You know, I would go to Christopher Street and I would see like Kids Vogue, and we would go on the pier, and there would always be like some older gay man that's just like talking about how things were back in the 60s and 70s. And I always got fascinated by that, you know, just seeing how like you had to get along, because life is about survival, how you had to basically survive. And you know, that idea of passing in order to survive. And you know, and this was not as mainstream as it is today, but it was like, no, like, you know, you didn't let people know. That was like that was the most dangerous thing you could do for your career, for your life, your family life, for anything, even where you stayed at. If somebody found out that you were gay, you know, they were trying to get you evicted. So I was always very fascinated by that. I think it helped me to take pride in the type of people that I came from. Just like, you know, how with my grandfather. So my grandfather was a freedom rider in the civil rights movement, and he worked with Martin Luther King. Just like how with, you know, seeing my grandfather and hearing his stories helped me take pride in being a Black man. A lot of those stories that I would hear from those gay men to have me take pride in being a gay man. So I had a lot of pride in myself and for who I was very early on. Yeah, so I definitely say that that definitely shaped me. And then also when I was there, my older cousin kind of took me under his wing, and him being about like, he's 12 years older than me, you know, having already experienced and gotten his handle on the lifestyle and just kind of his outlook on things. And we have different outlooks on things, but just him having someone there with that guidance of knowing exactly what you've been through or what you're going through. And it gives you, one, it's a great cushion because you don't feel like you're in this alone. And, you know, I feel so bad for so many people who had to kind of just figure out gay life. You just figure out gay life and how to be happy in gay life. I felt like, yes, a lot was me figuring it out, but I was blessed enough to have a lot of older gay men as mentors to help me, to, you know, help guide me along. and I take a little bit of what their advice is, a little bit what this advice is, a little bit what that advice is, and say, okay, like, oh, I like how you did this. I want to do it like that. Oh, yeah, I don't like how you did that. Like, and that's probably the reason why this happened. So, like, yeah, like, it's just really taking bits and pieces and allowing myself to kind of create what I wanted myself to be, to where I'm happy with what I look at when I see in the mirror.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's amazing. I think you touch on like allyship and like having people, and like you obviously were, you're blessed with your cousin and stuff like that, but you recognize the impact that had on your own journey, right? And it's just super important for people to find that, whether it's
Yeah.
your family and or friends, or just finding community to feel that comfort and to get that somewhere, because it does make it easier.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I do feel like a lot of times I was talking about this to my boyfriend where, you know, because being gay, yes, you're always going to have your family there and your family's always going to be helping you, guide you along or help you out, but being gay, a lot of times, no one else can understand that because a lot of people don't have gay relatives. So they can help you along and you can be a vessel for them to talk to, but they're not going to really get it. And that's where you tend to have, your gay family. You always have your gay family or
Absolutely.
your gay, I feel like the gay, just the gay community is the pioneers of having friends like family,
Hmm.
because for so long, if you were gay, they were shut out by their birth family, so you had to create a family and a community within yourself. Um, and with that community, you have people that have been through exactly what you're going through that can help you guide you along. I just was lucky enough to have someone who was also in my family to kind of be like, give me like a playbook of like, okay, this is how you go through things.
Yeah, awesome. So talk about your experience at Alvin Ailey, just becoming a dancer and a professional dancer, and you
Yeah.
know going to that school in general.
Going to the school was absolutely amazing. I have wonderful teachers. You are just constantly surrounded by so much talent from all over the country, and everyone's hungry to make their impact on the world. So much art. I love the fact that, you know people are just hungry to create, and it gives you that sense of wanting to create, wanting to figure out what is your imprint on the world. How to put your own personal experiences or your own personal feelings into art, through dance or through wherever. I feel like that is art is what makes the world go round, because a lot of times where you have your non-artist people, or your sometimes they need a vessel to be like, hey, I don't know how I feel right now, or I know I'm feeling something and I need to, like, what is exactly what is exactly how I feel. And then you find that in music, you find that in art, you find that in dance. And I like being able to put that into, I think Ailey taught me how to put that into, a sense, and give that back to the people
Yeah,
so that they do have a vessel to where they can say, you know what, this is what I was feeling, and I never knew what I was feeling until I saw this.
yeah. New York or LA?
Oh, yikes. um, you know, I can't pick. I can't pick. Only because New York is always gonna be like, that's my home, that's my base. All of my dad's side of the family's from there. Like, my sisters are all there. Um, I can honestly say I can't really pick, but LA is my home, where I created my life for myself. It's where I met my boyfriend, where I fell in love for the first time, where I really felt like I was getting a handle on like my career, what I wanted to be, the impact I had on on the world or the imprint I wanted to make on my life in my life. I can't really pick.
Both special
they're
for
both
different
so
reasons.
yeah, they both hold two very special things in my
Yeah.
heart. Yeah, I can't really pick. I mean, I do definitely feel like a lot of times I miss New York. Just because, I just miss running around, being with my family, because I don't have any family in LA. So yeah, I think that's
Yeah, I got you. So you talk about your boyfriend. So how'd you meet?
We met on Grindr.
Oh, nice. See, guys, it works.
It does. It's so funny because before I met him, I hadn't been in a relationship for like 2 years, and I was a-okay with just being alone, because I kind of had, I'm not gonna lie, I was doing my thing. I had like my little roster of people who I would like, I hang out with or whatever. I had my close friends. And
what up? It's your host, Ashley, and I'm interrupting this podcast to ask, are you following us? Have you downloaded the podcast? Are you subscribed to us on YouTube? If you're not already, go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow us on all platforms, Queerly Black. I'm going to let y'all get back to the show. Peace.
That was like my LA family. And I was just out here. I had my career, and I was figuring things out with that. I was like, what I need, I'm kind of getting. So it has to be somebody very, very special to kind of mess all that up. And then he comes. So, and I don't know, I don't know. But yeah, we met on Grindr. We get back to the story. We met on Grindr. We talked for like 2 months, and it was just really just like small talk or whatever. He had just come back from Atlanta. Then one night, I remember I just gotten off of work. And it was in October, and I set myself up. I was like, I'm gonna watch Nightmare on Elm Street, because during like Halloween, I love like all the 80s slasher movies. So I was like, I'm gonna watch Nightmare on Elm Street, get my popcorn, I got all my snacks. I'm gonna be good. He hits me up on Grindr, and I'm just like, we're talking for a little bit, and then he had just said he had a death in the family. And I remember thinking, and I was like, hey, I know we haven't really met, but it seems like, you shouldn't be alone tonight. I was like, listen, I got some cheap whiskey and I got some good conversation. You are welcome to come over. And he was like, you know what? I'm gonna take you up on that offer. So he came over, didn't leave for a whole day. Which is very, very weird for me, because I get very annoyed with people in my personal space after probably about like an hour. I'm like,
you're like, this is different. This is different.
Yeah. I was like, I'm actually not tired of you. You aren't getting on my nerves. So yeah, it just kind of clicked and it felt right. And I always tell him, I was like, you felt like home. You felt like home. Like, I could just be crazy with you. I could be vulnerable with you. I could tell you all my dreams. I feel supported. But yeah, even me thinking about it now, he's really, really a great guy.
Yeah.
And
How long you guys been together?
October 13th makes 3 years.
Nice. So and how long you been in LA?
I've been in LA. March 3rd of this year makes 6 years.
Nice. So life dating before your boyfriend now.
I didn't really date.
Well, okay.
I had a boyfriend when I first moved here, and that was kind of like tumultuous. It was just like I shouldn't have been in a relationship in the first place. So like I really was very adamant. Like I was just like, I don't want to date. I don't want to date. And I was kind of okay with being by myself for the rest of my life. And I know that it's not as morbid as it sounds, and not as like melancholy as it sounds. I was just okay with where my life was, where like my friends was, if I needed any type of love or reassurance. I got that from whoever I was entangled with or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I really wasn't looking for a relationship. Plus, like, I just had certain views on things where I felt like most of the people who wanted a relationship, they would have been like, oh yeah, nah.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I don't know if I'm like really cut out to be in a relationship.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I was and how I was dating, where it was just like, I mean, I really just wasn't dating. It was just like, I was out having fun.
Yeah. How what does vulnerability look like for I won't ask you about all Black gay men, but for you in particular, because one of the things that about LA and other areas, but I hear a lot about like you know, people in the queer community dating, and it's always like super challenging, and it's like, the narratives, like the few things are like no one wants anything real, there's a few things, right? So how do you break past the point of like everyone says they want a relationship, but do you really want a relationship?
So this is what I always say, and I always say I don't give advice, because how I view relationships and how I view how I want to be loved and how I want to grow with somebody and how I want to love is something completely different how somebody else has set up.
Right.
So that's a lot of times why I don't give relationship advice. But the one thing I will say in relationship advice, you will never have to question when somebody is in love with you and when somebody wants to build a life with you. It will never be a question. They won't have to say it. They'll just show it. They'll show it with their energy. And even if they do say it, they'll say it, but they'll also show it. And I always say, you don't pay attention to someone's words because they can say whatever they want.
Mm-hmm.
You don't pay attention to someone's actions because they can do something to get something from you. You pay attention to their patterns.
Mm-hmm.
And patterns, and you look at, because your patterns, you always go back to your patterns. You always go back to, and your patterns really show where your energy wants to lie.
Mm-hmm.
And I always, one thing I always looked at my boyfriend's patterns and how he constantly showed, that in me, the energy that he wanted to spend time with me, that he wanted me to be around, that he wanted to incorporate me in his life. And, and I reciprocated that because I wanted him in my life just as much. And that was the first time for me allowing myself to do that, because you always hear about people falling in love, and I always felt like in my past like love life, it was always either it was right place wrong time, or I was more into the person than they were into me, or they were more into me than I was into them. And this one, I was like, I really feel like I am into him and he is into me, and wow, this is a wonderful feeling. But when you go back to vulnerability, because I can sit back and be into you and you can sit back and be into me, but if things aren't checking out, they're not checking out. And that's what's required to make a relationship and make a life together. And I feel like vulnerability is showing the multiple sides of you, because everybody's multi-layered. You're not just one side. So, I feel like I was allowed to be vulnerable with my boyfriend. And I was also allowed to just sit back and say unpopular opinions or views of what I think on relationships and views on, and we can disagree. And there are things that we still disagree about, but it's like my disagreement from that is not a deal breaker for me wanting to build a life with you, because everything else, there's so many other things that check out. And he's just someone that I really just fully love and I respect, and I really just want the best for him, because I feel like he's a good person, and not a lot of good people get other good people generally want we could come across good people that generally want them to have the best and happiest life that they have possible. And I do generally want that for him, and I want to generally give that to him in the best way that I can. And I feel like that is reciprocated.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Or, good people who haven't been treated poorly. And so now they're a
Yeah.
little bit, their views on life have been skewed. And so then you got, the damage control situation. No, that's awesome. I think after being in the same relationship for 14 years, I think you got it
Oh, listen.
spot on.
Listen.
You got
Listen,
it. You
if
got
you
it.
don't get it, I don't know who will get
Listen,
it.
okay, patterns are everything, trust, and I think all of that, I agree wholeheartedly. But I definitely I love, you guys' relationship, and I look forward to, continuing to see you guys grow and blossom and be beautiful. I love it.
Thank you. That
Yeah.
means a lot to me. Thank you.
Yeah. So talk about upcoming projects, like what you got going on, anything you can share.
I have nothing that I can share now. I feel like I just did everything. The projects that I did. That's the funny thing about dance. Like, I won't know about like I'm doing certain things until like sometimes 2 or 3 days. Like,
Before, yeah.
yeah, 2 or 3 days beforehand. It's like, all right, you booked it. Rehearsal tomorrow, 8 a.m. And you're like, mind you, they're like letting me know at like 11 a.m. 11 p.m. the night before. Like, I've literally had things like that. But no, I mean, just recently, I just danced for Lil Kim for the WeHo Pride Festival. I was just on the Late Late Show with James Corden. Um, I did Super Bowl. This is actually my second Super Bowl this past year, with Kendrick Lamar. And I also did the one prior to this year for the weekend. I am currently working on another dance visual about a subject. I don't really want to talk about this, but it's a very sensitive subject, but I feel like it's a subject that needs to be talked about and also needs to be, I've never seen it interpreted through dance and in the way that I want to interpret it. And it's something that, well, I already was thinking about it, but then I had lost a friend in May, and it really which was to the subject that I was already covering. So it really made me like really want to delve deep into like what I was doing and give an extra depth to the video that I'm creating. The only thing is I need money for it, so now I'm saving up money for it.
Yeah.
So once I have the money for it, then it'll be greenlit and I'll be able to share it with the world. So I'm really excited about that.
That's awesome, man. That's incredible. And so you got to share your diet.
You don't want to know my diet.
Yeah. Are you one of those blessed people with the good metabolism?
Yeah.
From God, guys.
So my boyfriend, he's a culinary producer and he's a chef.
Oh, nice.
So he always says, he was like, if I didn't get you to gain weight in the pandemic, I don't know how, because all we were doing were eating and drinking in the pandemic. And so, and he gets these ideas. And he's like, oh, I want to do this with this. And I'm like, oh, that's great. Listen, here, I'll pay for the groceries. I would pay for the groceries. He would go downstairs. He would go in the kitchen and he would like go upstairs, watch a movie or something. I would come down 3 hours later, and it would just be this beautiful meal. Like, and we did this daily because we didn't have anything else to do.
Yeah.
And yeah, like, and even now he'll just like cook for me because he knows I love lamb, and he'll just be like, I think I'm gonna do lamb burgers, and I'll just get excited.
Like, yes.
I'm like, yes, go with that feeling. Yeah, and he's made so many, career things. He's done so many amazing things. I'm so incredibly proud of him and his journey. But yeah, he cooks. We are starting, he's starting to do more vegan.
What up? It's your host, Ashley, and I'm interrupting this podcast to ask, are you following us? Have you downloaded the podcast? Are you subscribed to us on YouTube? If you're not already, go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow us on all platforms, Queerly Black. I'm going to let y'all get back to the show. Peace.
Vegan stuff, because the client that he's on right now is a vegan. So I'm excited to start trying more vegan things. I don't think I'm ever going.
Land to vegan.
I'm never gonna go there. I just love trying things. I love trying food. Like, we both love food, and we love trying new restaurants and things like that. Like, I do not mind spending $250
for a good meal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like, I am that person. I will go to a nice restaurant. I will eat, enjoy myself. It's a good meal.
Yeah, we'll have to go. We'll have to make that happen. Me and my wife, you
Oh,
and
absolutely.
we gotta
Listen,
go.
I was going to send you this email right after.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we gotta connect. That's great, man. So, okay, 2 more questions.
Yeah.
If you had a theme song for your life, what would it be?
Ooh, theme song for my life.
And I meant to send you this.
Mind you, and I'm a huge music person, so I'm just like trying to think of like what is the main song. You know what? I would probably say my theme song for my life would probably be "Be Happy" by Mary J. Blige. So yeah, that's all I really want. That's really all I want, like in my
All I
life.
really want is that makes sense
All
too.
I really
You
want is
kind of
yeah, that's really that's
yeah,
all I really want. If somebody like and be surrounded by people that just make me happy, you
yeah.
know, and hope that I can do the same and be a vessel of happiness for them as well. That's really it.
MJB's a vibe, man. She's a vibe. It's funny because you know, you spent a lot of time in New York, and I'm originally from New Jersey, right? So
Oh, Jersey.
The East Coast vibe is just it's different. The swag
It
is
is.
just different.
It is.
The
And it's
whole
so
swag is different.
right. It's so funny. So like, so Mary went right before Kendrick when we were doing the Super Bowl. So
Yeah.
we would be in rehearsals, and you know, Mary is like, we're getting in our cardboard boxes, and Mary bopping right before she starts her set. Yo, I was like, it's just it was just such a
and
vibe.
then 50 Cent, listen to me. When
Yeah.
50 Cent came down off that thing, I like lost my damn mind. I was like, 50, like what?
Like actually almost like spilled the beans. I think like the day before there was like something like they were like, oh, 50 Cent's the surprise artist. And you know, they sent it to whoever, and you know, that Super Bowl team is serious. They got it.
They ain't playing around. Yeah, that show makes that Super Bowl makes a lot of money. They ain't playing around.
Yeah.
I love 50 Cent. Like that's my guy. Like man, I like to lost my mind.
My aunt's actually good friends with him. Because he's from Southside Jamaica, Queens, which a lot of my family live. And actually my 2 sisters live there as well. So, but yeah, she was like, yeah, I've known Curtis since like forever. So like she like it's so funny because he be commenting on her
he's
her
like
post on Instagram. I'm like, is that 50 Cent? She's like, oh, that ain't nothing. Like, okay.
That's Curtis Jackson. Like
right.
Yeah. Like, I saw him in the airport. I was coming home from Jersey. This was in March this year. And you know, like I have Clear, so like I'm in like the Clear line, but then so
I need to invest in that. My boyfriend just told me, he was like,
yeah. I don't know if y'all have Amex or not, but you get it for free through like with Amex, you get like the membership. So if you have it, that's just another way you could, you know, get it. You probably like some of the other ones they give it to you too. But so I'm standing there like doing my thing, and I met him actually a few times. Like I've, you know, like when his book came out, 50th Laws of Power, he came to Howard and he signed my book, and like, you know, I met him there, and you know, seen him a couple of other times, seen him in Vegas, like but when he every single time is like, yo, that's like 50. He comes in and he's like walking past with his it was just him and one other guy. He didn't have like a whole posse with him or nothing like that. Super cool, like, you know, gentleman, nice, talk to the people, like just a cool dude. Like I just like that's what I'm talking about. You know, I love this guy. Like
I don't know, them posts be questionable, but I haven't learned that.
But that's his trolling.
A lot of my friends told me, they was like, oh, I just post to troll. And I was like, okay. Because, you know, I'm like, what are you talking? Like, one of my friends, I remember really like, he said some post, and then we went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And I was really to the point where
that makes sense because you're a Cancer. So like, what you say, like what you said, like
no, you don't know whose feelings you're hurting.
My sister's a Cancer, so I know what that is. Yeah, very like.
And then like, you know, I saw him out, and I saw him out, and I like avoided him, and he was like, so you're really not talking to me about that? It was like, you know, I just talk shit to talk shit. And I was like, really? That's it? I was like, oh. And I was like,
what's the meaning behind that? What's the purpose
Listen,
of this?
I got it. Because if it's like, oh, you don't mean any harm, because I just hate it. I don't like ill-willed people. So I was like, if you don't really have any ill will, and I get it. It's like some people just, they're bored, so they just want to troll and talk shit and just to get a reaction out of people. And he's an Aries, so they love that.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, okay. All right, it makes sense. All right.
Now you're like, I don't even care about anything you say
I was like,
anymore.
I'll forgive you if you buy me a drink. That's fine.
For sure. Final question. If you have advice for someone who is going through their own queer journey, what would it be?
Career journey?
Their queer journey.
Oh, queer journey. I will say this. It's a quote that I actually have on my Instagram profile, and it's a quote that I live by. Control your narrative. No one can label you but you. I feel like so many people, they feel like, oh, well, they did this in their past or this coming in, especially in the days of social media. Well, social media will not let you forget your past. You always have to be very committed to your present and where you want your future to go. And then all they're ever going to have is just what you did in the past. So I will always say, just control your narrative. No one can ever label you but you.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great advice, man. Tell the people where they can find you.
You can find me on Instagram. My Instagram name is grimchim, GRIMCHIM. It is all one word. I was about to say letter. Yeah. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for coming through. We look forward to seeing you continue to dance and just keep living, keep loving. But y'all already know, man, it's another episode of the Queerly Blax Show. I'm your host, Ashley. I'll catch y'all on the next one.
Bye.